everywhere. Um, but what we're really doing is an analysis of an idea that was very new to us. New to us, meaning maybe even new to the world in a certain way. And the idea that a Jew has two souls. That's really what this whole conversation has been. The reason we got into the conversation, I'm looking at chapter 1 now, is because we want to understand what is this thing called the Benoni. Okay, that's really what this whole conversation is about. Because the Alter Rebbe maintains that for most of us, that is what we aspire to, is to be a Benoni. In the rest of the world, we're striving for excellence. Here, we're striving for middleness. Whereas the young people like to say mid. How was it? It was mid. We're striving to be mid, but the mid is very high. It's very special. Something quite worth striving for. And we described it a Jew as two souls. So if you follow just real quickly as we go down, the first soul is the Nefesh Bahamis. I'm using the way I speak, not the way you speak. You would say Nefesh Bahamit. Okay. So Nefesh Bahamis, which is the animal soul. And in chapter 1, we described a little bit about the animal soul. Then chapter 2, we got into the Nefesh Elokis. And that's chapter 2, 3, and 4 and 5. Is all the Nefesh Elokis, which is the godly soul. First, we spoke about, I put in some Hebrew words with English translation, English transliteration. Chelek Elokam mima'al mamish, that it's literally a part of God. And we explained its source, the Chachma Vatzilus, and that there's no diminishing journey. It comes down to this earth pure, straight from its source, which means it doesn't go through all of the hiddennesses that creates the physicality. That's what makes it unique. It's pure godliness in the physical world. That's it's the superpower. Um, and then we spoke about the fact that there's different levels of godly souls. So even though it seems like it should all be the same because it's all coming from the same place, and it doesn't go through the diminution, but we spoke about the idea that there's different kinds of godly souls. There's the leaders of the generations. There's the foot soldiers, the generals, all different kinds of levels of godly soul. That's what we spoke about in chapter 2. Chapter 3, we spoke about the makeup of the godly soul. And again, I like to joke about it because I'm teaching women. We don't mean that makeup. We're talking about the makeup like the chemical makeup. Here, let's pass some of these over. You guys are going to need books too, by the way. Book, and book. Bravo. Yeah, passe. Okay. Its makeup is seichel, which is intelligence, which is, this should have been indented further, Chabad, Chachma, Bina, Das. I'm explaining the difference between Chachma, Bina, and Das. Then there's the midos, the attributes, which people like to call emotion. You know, I have a problem with that. And those are Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes is one group, Netzach, Hod Yesod is another group, and Malchus. So we spoke about all of those things, not in detail, but we spoke about them a little bit. That's what it's made of. That's what the godly soul is made of. It's made of Seichel and Midos. We're clear so far? Yeah.
Is from the Tanya.
No. No. Almost none of this is really directly only from the Tanya. The only thing that well, even that, okay. No, that's all Kabbalah. It's classic Kabbalah. Classic Kabbalah. So again, I should have indented Chabad and indented Chesed Gvur Tiferes because that's a subcategory of Midos, explaining the Midos. Okay. Then, so that's what it's made of. Then we spoke about the clothing it wears. Okay, when we mean clothing, because it can take it on and off. It's not what it is, it's what it does, or the way it functions, or the way it expresses itself. And we spoke about three things: machshava, dibor, maaseh. Machshava is thought. That's chapter 4. Machshava is thought, and since we're speaking about the godly soul, it's only thinking about Hashem or thinking about His Torah. That's what the thought of the godly soul is. Dibor is speech, which is speaking words of Torah or words that are mitzvahs. So, for example, to say something nice to your husband, or for me to say something nice to my wife, is a mitzvah. So when I use my speech to say something nice, that already is the godly soul expressing itself. Or if I'm going to speak about doing tzedakah, right? I'm trying to organize a tzedakah fund or something. I don't know. There are many ways that speech can be a mitzvah. And finally is Maaseh, which is action, which is doing mitzvahs. And very importantly, the end of it is regular things as a mitzvah. Regular things as a mitzvah would mean, we spoke about this last week or 2 weeks ago, but when you go to work, that's a regular thing. But Hashem gave us a mitzvah to work. So if you're doing the work as a mitzvah, it's no longer a regular thing, it's a mitzvah. It becomes the intention. That's right. That's right. Okay, so those are the clothing of the godly soul. And then we spoke about the uniqueness of Torah study, that unlike every other connection to Hashem, Torah study, your mind actually envelops God's will and God's intelligence, and your mind is enveloped by God's will and God's intelligence. It's a very unique reality, and especially that we're just coming out of Shavuot. This is something to always keep in mind when we're studying Torah, that it's not just the utilitarian aspect of Torah, that it teaches us to be a good person. That's good. Or it teaches us how to be happy. Maybe one can debate that. I think probably. But that's the utilitarian aspect of Torah. But Torah study itself is the utility, because you're connecting with Hashem in such a powerful way. That was chapter 5. Chapter 6, we started to speak about the animal soul. Again, we went backwards now. We did its makeup, which is, again, I should have put this in, the 10 Sefirot, Chachma Bin Adas, and the Midos, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, and Malchus. We spoke about its clothing, which is also action, speech, and thought. And here the Alter Rebbe went in backwards order, but we won't just spend time on that for the moment. And we spoke about its source, but not in detail. We spoke about its source, which is klipa. That was a new word that we learned. Klipa, which means shells, coverings over God. Sitra achra, which means the other side. And we contrasted that. I put this in parentheses because it's very important to keep in mind. We contrasted that with bittul, kedusha, and mesiras nefesh, which is the holy side of it. Not of it, the holy side. Does that make sense? Are we following a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, I hope that this is useful. Okay, then we got into the shalosh klipos hatameos. We said klipa could be divided into two parts. One is shalosh klipas hatameos, and then in the next chapter, klipas noga. Shalosh klipas hatameos are the three negative, always negative, cannot be elevated shells. And we spoke about it in humans. We spoke about that being non-Jewish souls. We spoke about it in animals, non-kosher animals. We spoke about it in vegetable and mineral. Mineral, he intimated, he didn't speak about it explicitly. Non-kosher animals and vegetable, anything which is prohibited, which is not so many things, but there are some vegetables that are prohibited, and mineral, even less, that are prohibited. Also, very important, we spoke about it in terms of here, pass it over if you don't mind. Thank you. In terms of ourselves, any thought, speech, or action that is prohibited. If we do something that is against the Torah, we think something that is against the Torah, or we say something that is against the Torah, it gets its vitality, it gets its energy from Shalosh Klipos Hatameos. That was the end of chapter 6. We're good so far? Yes? Is this good, or I'm going too fast, or it's making sense? A little bit fast?
Both.
Yeah, okay.
Making sense.
Okay. Anyhow, I want to get to chapter 9. I just want you to know where we're holding. Okay, good. Excellent. Thank you. Then we spoke about Klippas Noga. Klippas Noga, I should have put a little bit more meaning of what that is mostly bad, but has some good. And therefore, you don't have to put the therefore, but the mostly bad has some good, but therefore, it can be elevated. That's the important word. It's elevatable. That's important. By the way, I share this as a doc with you guys too, so if anybody wants to touch it up or do whatever you want, you can do it. Okay. And the examples of Klippas Noga in human is the Jewish animal soul. in animals is kosher animals, which is just a few. Vegetable is all that are not prohibited, which is almost all vegetables. And mineral, even more, all that are not prohibited. Sure.
Sí.
No. It's but very simple. It would be um, um, in Israel specifically, where you have vegetables or fruits that are not maser and teruma, that you didn't take off maser and teruma, or that were planted and harvested during Shemitah, the seventh year. Those would be examples of vegetables that are prohibited. There's more, but not many. It's very few. In addition, and this is where we spent a lot of time, is the vitality of all thought, speech, and action that are permitted, but not directed to Hashem. So we were thinking that this might be all of our businesses, and maybe it could be. It depends. Depends on how we conduct ourselves. If we're conducting ourselves as doing a mitzvah, it's a mitzvah. Or perhaps all of our mothering, or perhaps all of our wifing, or husbanding, or fathering, or whatever it is, all our regular day to day. It depends. Some of it could be Kedusha, where it's pure holiness. Some of it could be doing something which is plain and physical, but using it to eventually do something good with it. And some of it could be, which is probably the majority for most people, not you, of course, which is I'm doing it all for me. And when it's doing it all for me, it stays in the world of Klippa and it even draws down you into the world of Klippa. We got it? Sort of? Yeah. It's a big topic, but that's the basic idea. Okay, we gave some examples in this chapter of how they could be used for good. We spoke about a rabbi who used to eat good meat and drink fine wine in order to open his mind to study Torah. That's why I eat drink. That's all me, purely. We spoke about a rabbi who would say a joke before he began his Torah study, his teaching of Torah, in order to open the minds of his students. So those would be examples of how it's used for good. We also spoke about the effect of indulgence. And now we're speaking about indulgence in either permissible or prohibited. And specifically, we spoke about sexuality. There could be sexuality with somebody who's prohibited or other kinds of prohibited sexuality and what the effect of that is. And then we spoke about where it's permissible, but purely for pleasure with not having brought Hashem into the picture. We mentioned that. Chapter 8, we spent more time on the Shalosh Klipos Tameos. Those are the negative klipa. We spoke about non-kosher food, and we contrasted it with kosher food, but for the wrong reasons. So non-kosher food can never be elevated. Kosher food, even if you eat it for the wrong reason, later on in life, you can elevate it. It's not that it's permanently negative. However, we mentioned that it leaves an effect on the body, and therefore the body needs to decompose.
Why kosher food can be negative?
If you're eating it as a glutton, you're eating it just because you're a foodie. Okay, this is where my wife got upset at me.
Yes. I remember.
That we're all going to right. Which I was just going to say, I meant to mention that earlier. I have to give everybody credit to coming back after last class. You know what I'm saying? Last class, I left you guys in a pretty negative mode. You know what I'm saying? But you're back, so thank God we can try and fix it a little bit. Good. That's why you came back. Very good. Very good. We also contrasted useless speech versus prohibited speech. That useless speech is bad, but it's not prohibited. But then there's prohibited speech and how each one of those affect the soul, and therefore what the cleansing process for the effect on the soul would look like. We spoke about useless speech, that your soul gets shot in a slingshot around the world or something like that. Okay, and this is all the reward and punishment that we speak about in Judaism. But really, Hasidus although it believes in reward and punishment, looks at it more as cleansing, the process that's required in order to cleanse us from the negative things that we became involved in this world. And then finally, we mentioned briefly, we didn't get to study it together, was the place that secular learning, or the negative place that secular learning occupies in this whole picture. What we should have by now we're getting to the chapter 9, and chapter 9 kind of speak about the secular learning. I don't know if I want to. No, it's not that I want to. What's it called? It's just that'll be the end of this class. We really will. This is so huge. It really is. It's not that I'm trying to avoid the topic. You know me, I'm not shy to say what I think needs to be said. But I just think that we're going to go on such a tangent. I could give you the short version, the very short version, no questions. How's that? Okay, the very short version is he said that secular learning is in a certain way more problematic than everything we've been speaking about, including even prohibited things. Why? Because you're taking your most elevated part of yourself, which is your mind, and you're involving it in things that it doesn't need to be involved in. So then he says, with two exceptions. One exception is somebody who knows how to use that learning to serve Hashem. And one is somebody who's doing it to make a living. So those are the two exceptions for secular learning. So in his mind, I just want to say, in his mind, and this is there's an interesting, wow, I can go on forever on this one. This is a topic I'm actually very, very passionate about. But I've done a lot of research into from all different paths of Orthodox Jewish thinking. Let's call it that. I don't like the word Orthodox, but we use it. Of Orthodox Jewish thinking, there's many different paths of thinking about secular learning. And the Alter Rebbe, in a certain way, may be the most extreme, maybe. But he gives the one out. But his basic theory is that secular learning is prohibited, not prohibited, is bad. Science, no, I mean teaching science, math, all these things.
Todo lo que no es Torah.
Todo lo que no es Torah. Exacto. He didn't say prohibited. That's not the word he used, but it has a very negative effect. Unless, because remember, we're not talking about prohibited. There is prohibited learning. Let me just, okay, why not? Let's take a couple minutes.
Was the Kabbalistic rabbi a doctor?
Not only that, the Alter Rebbe himself, Maimonides, of course, yes. The Alter Rebbe himself was very knowledgeable in sciences and math, very knowledgeable, 100%. So let's just do this again, because this is the same for everything we've been learning. There's three levels. Now, there's really millions of levels, but three basic levels. Level 1 is holy. Level 2 is prohibited. Level 3 is everything else in the middle. Holy is Torah, or thinking about Hashem. Prohibited would be things like studying about other religions. Okay? Everything in the middle is everything in the middle. In other words, anything that's not Torah and not prohibited. So that would be everything from, I don't know, English literature. Let's go study English literature, history, science, math, music, all these things. All of that fits in the stuff in the middle. So the Alter Rebbe is looking, remember, we started the class way, way, way in the beginning, that he views everything that's not for Hashem as essentially, he uses a strong word, I'm going to use it again, as being evil. But not evil the way that we use the word evil. Not evil as in baby killing evil. Pardon for bringing it up again, but it's just a good extreme example. Not that kind of evil, but in his view, life is about, and I agree with his view, I'm not debating him. I'm just using, in his view, life is about serving Hashem.
That to me was not a problem. Right? After last class, I left like all your life you have to live. The purpose is to serve Hashem. So everything I do, I ask myself, am I serving Hashem? And always my answer is no.
No, okay, so that I dis.
Like,
So let me give you two things. I'm
Yeah.
going to lift you up now. Okay, I'm going to lift you up, and this is not me blowing smoke, as the expression goes. Okay, the fact that you think about that puts you ahead of 99% of the planet, 99.999% of the planet. You're already a very advanced Jew just by thinking about that. Okay, that's number one. Number two is you're probably wrong on your answer. Many, many times you're probably wrong on your answer. Okay, is it 100% pure? Okay, no, we're not talking about that. Why not? For sure you can.
Maybe to be healthy,
Yeah.
so you can.
You have a decision at the moment to say, you know what, I'm going to do this to serve Hashem. And now let's go.
going to
You can. So that's amazing. Hello, you're 1,000% better than me. Okay, that's amazing. The fact that you asked that question puts you, you're almost at Tzaddikus. Okay. No, and I'm not just blowing smoke. I'm saying this for real. This is for real. That's huge. That's an amazing transformation.
¿Qué vas a hacer con tus amigas? ¿Vas a hablar mal de las personas? Obviamente, you're not serving Hashem, pero si estás
relajándote,
si estás
quitándote estrés, botando rutina, como se llama.
Remember, everything that we're discussing is in the middle. Almost everything of our life, most of our life is spent in the middle. Okay, it's not spent in direct service of Hashem. It's not spent in direct rebellion of Hashem. And the consciousness is the beginning of the whole conversation. You could be.
100%.
No, wait. Everyone says it's claro. I'm going to argue with everybody. I'm on your team a little bit. I agree. There you go. Good answer. That's the correct answer. The correct answer is maybe. But then I have a decision. In other words, it's not yes. You said claro, and you're not wrong. But because you could use it to serve Hashem, of course. That's what you're trying to argue. Of course you can. Your job is to be a mother. That's part of your job. Part of a mother's job is to bring her kids to soccer practice or whatever it is. Okay, chauffeur driver. Okay, now the question is, am I consciously using this to serve Hashem? And step one is asking the question. That's huge. You know what I'm saying? Now, I'm not saying that this is really we're about to go is the kind of culmination of this whole thinking. But should we take 2 more minutes and talk about, or we're good on the different ways of learning, secular learning? Let's move on. Let's go back into Tanya. We'll come back another time. 8:45. I hope we can do this. Okay, and I mentioned, some of you weren't here last week. I mentioned that what I would like to do is do 1 or maybe 2 more classes in Tanya specifically, in order to get to the end of this big section that we've been working on for this whole year, which is very impressive, ladies. It is. I'm amazed. So that we can get to a culmination of it. Then over the summer, because people are going to be traveling and this and that, we'll learn kind of like standalone topics. And then after the summer, we'll come back to the text. Does that work for everybody? So we're going to do probably 1 or 2 more to really get to a good point. Chapter 9, we're finally dealing a little bit with real life. Up until now, we've been setting up the facts that are necessary to understand chapter 9. Okay. Am I in the right book here? No, I'm not. Okay. We may, and also in order to speed things up, I may be skipping a little bit within the chapter. Hopefully, I'll mention everything that will make us understand what we need to understand. Where is the seat, the dwelling place of the animal soul? Is in the heart, which means things that are motivated with heart first will normally be what we call natural, and what he calls animal, right? That's the human animal. The human animal does what he feels. Betholo smali, and specifically in the left ventricle, the heart is made up of four compartments, right? There's the right side, left side, upper part of the heart, lower part of the heart. And he's very specific here, and it's worth going into, but I don't want to go into it now because it's very particular, and I want to try and move. Go ahead.
To come up to the conclusion that it's the left ventricle, you have to study science.
Yeah, as we said earlier,
Or to
the
serve
only
Hashem.
to serve Hashem. As we said
Yeah.
earlier, there's two
Okay.
exceptions, and that's why I say there's a lot to talk about this topic. Maybe we'll do that as its own topic
During the summer.
But you can, yes. And not only that, he said the other one is to make a living. So making a living and to use it specifically to serve Hashem, like here. And he says, he brings like the Rambam and the Ramban, which is the ones you mentioned. Okay. Ki adam hu nefesh, because the blood is the soul. That's a line directly from the written Torah, that the blood is the soul. And so he's saying that which soul is the blood? It's the animal soul. Therefore, all pleasure seeking, all vanity, and all anger originates in the heart. And from the heart, it goes out to the entire rest of the body. And not only does it go to the rest of the body, it goes up to the brain. And now it makes the brain get involved in what the heart wants it to be involved in. To think about and to, he uses a different word, I'm going to use a more modern technique, to cogitate, to really spend time thinking about what the heart is feeling.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Here you said that from the heart it goes to the brain, but it says to the entire body.
First the body, we said the body, and then even the brain.
Tercer párrafo.
Okay.
Okay. And this is just as just like physically, the blood is primarily in the heart, and the blood then goes from the heart and gets sent to all of the limbs of the body, and it goes up to the brain. So just as it is in the physical sense, it is in the spiritual human sense, meaning that when you have a feeling, why not? It's a little uncomfortable because I'm a guy and you're women, but when a guy sees a pretty girl, okay, he's attracted. All men, all girls deal with it. I'm sorry, ladies. That's the way it is. Okay, facts. Okay. Now, what he does with this initial attraction is what's going to define him as a person. So when he allows that attraction to go into his mind, and then he spends time thinking about it, that's what we're discussing here. You see what I'm saying? On the other hand, he could shut it down immediately. Yes, I noticed. Yes, I was attracted, but move on that order. And that's really one of the hard jobs of a man. We all have it in different forms, different ways.
Because it's like the instinct and then the
Precisely correct. That's exactly what it is. The instinct is the animal. And I gave you the most animal reality. We can go into much more subtle, exactly. We can go to much more subtle versions of it. But that's the most animal reality.
Correct. Kind of like being kosher. I see it as if you have a delicious meat which is not kosher.
It exists. Okay.
Maybe I'm kosher. But
Okay. No. You heard about it. Somebody once told you. Yeah. Precisely correct. That's exactly it. Yes. Yes.
Holy.
No question. That's exactly correct. Exactly right. I used one of the most powerful instinctual examples, but there's other instinctual, the desire for food, anger. Okay. Somebody does something that really triggers you. You have choices. You don't have to live in the anger. It's a decision. Okay. It really is a decision. Um, when you take time to think about what made you angry, not in the analysis way of like trying to get rid of it, but in the continuing cycle. Yes, the continuing cycle of staying in that anger. Oh my gosh, I can't believe she actually said that to me, or she forgot to do this, or whatever it is. I mean, that's the husband-wife, which is where most of us spend most of our anger. Sorry, guys. It's just life. Okay. I'm just saying it like it is, whether we like it or not. Even if we have great relationships, or a kid, or somebody else who's very close to you, that's most of our anger is directed at the people closest to us. And you decide to continue to think about it, your instinct, as you said, was the whatever it is, the fear or whatever it is that caused the anger, and your continued cogitation, that's to keep thinking about it, is what we're describing here of the coming from the heart and then going to the brain. Make sense?
Yeah.
Good. Ach, last paragraph of 137. Makim mishkana nefesh elikis hu b'moichin. Where is the seat of the godly soul? Is in the brain. Once again, that doesn't mean everything in the brain is positive, and it doesn't mean everything in the heart is negative. But part of the way to distinguish between the positive and negative is, where did it originate?
I would have thought.
Yes.
I know, of course you would have. That's the way we're trained. That's the world we live in. The world we live in is an animal world. It's just human animals. Isn't hurt because love and this is what we're told all the time. Alive. Yeah, I got you.
We don't come home. Actually.
So now we're gonna argue it. Let's do it. Okay, I see that look. Like, let's go for this.
No, by the be not good. Like it's nurtured by how you were raised, by the families that you have around, by your values. So it's very
Experiences.
mundane. No.
Mhm.
Explain
No,
more.
why the brain
Explain more.
why so- que está alimentado de tantas cosas.
I think what she's trying to say is that it's most easily influenced
Right.
by everything around you, where the heart is more
No,
pure.
no, because the brain can be trained. Either
Is
by
trained,
you or
actually.
people
Around.
You're saying the positive of the brain. That's the positive of the brain. To a degree, yeah.
the brain can be trained by your
Good answer.
viento.
Pero lo que ellas están diciendo es que ellas pensaban que el spiritual soul iba a ser más parecido a la naturaleza del animal soul in the sense that it's more, I guess, pure, not influenced by.
But humans are the only ones that have brains. If not, we were all the animals. That's
Well,
why the
so-
godly soul is in the brain.
Okay, now
Because
in
we
that
are
sense I
God-
get it. In
Not
that
the
sense I
godly,
get it.
which is part of God. What he chose to sí, sí. Brain can be trained by
So
el ambiente. O sea, tú puedes tener un brain que está
So remember, let's be clear. Right. Yeah.
to my
Okay, so that's why I'm saying, that's what I was saying, that's the way we're trained. Because we've always been told since Disney, and then from then forward, because Disney is the foundation of our education, is follow your heart. Follow your heart, follow your heart, follow your heart.
The rabbi likes your therapy.
Okay, but be careful because we did not say that everything that is brain is good, and we did not say that everything that is heart is bad. All we said is that it most likely, if it originates in the heart, it's going to be animal, and most likely for it to be good, it must originate in the brain. Not good, for it to be holy, it must originate in the brain. Those are the most likelies, and it's not the everything. So be careful with what we're saying here. Okay, what's that?
Que no se han originado. O sea, I have
Estás
feel like I've
estudiando
had-
algo y te lo está entrando en tu
Claro.
cabeza, entonces eso está
Claro.
originando.
What was the question? Okay, of
if you can have things that are originated from the brain.
course. Yeah, what were you saying?
From the
No,
brain.
sé. It's okay.
Okay.
Can you
No,
give
but
examples?
yes, let's explain a little bit because it's true what Daniela is saying, and I don't know if, I mean, sometimes you have thoughts that start in your brain, but also things like we're starting in your brain.
Okay, so
Or-
look, we have to be a little bit unscientific for a moment, okay? Because science views the brain as all, it doesn't even view the heart as really having a thought process, if you want to use those words. Okay, what do I mean by that? Let's go back to the guy sing a pretty girl example. Science would say that that's happening in the brain too. He's feeling it in the heart, but it's happening in the brain. So in science, everything or current scientific models is that everything that you're conscious of is happening in the brain, period. That's not the way the Alter Rebbe is really looking at it. So we have to kind of take a step back from the way that we normally think of things. Now, he's not saying that a heart thinks about things. He's not suggesting that. It's only your brain that thinks about it. But he is suggesting that your instinct can originate in your heart. Okay?
Okay, but what are the things that originate in the brain?
He's going to give us an example now. So let's go to 138. We're going to go to an extreme example, and then we're going to go maybe to some normal examples, a positive extreme example. 138. He also says that the godly soul also has a vacation home in the heart as well. He doesn't use the word vacation home. He also has an apartment in the right ventricle of the heart. Ukamaisha Kasav, as the pasuk says, Leiv Chacham Liyaminai, the heart of a wise man is on his right. We're going to explain what this means now. To the middle of 138. What would an example of the godly soul living in the heart be? Vihi ahavas Hashem kerish bishal heves misla heves belev maskilim. It is the love of God that is fiery. Now I don't know who's experienced this, but let's just imagine it for the moment. Maybe all of you have. Misla heves belev maskilim, that flares up in the heart of those who are smart. Hamevinim umizbainanim. If you remember before, I told you that maybe I didn't. I don't know if I ever told you this. There's many streams of Chasidus. All of this is teachings of the Baal Shem Tov at the end of the day. Alter Rebbe is one stream. He made what we call Chabad Chasidus. That's what we're learning now. There's something called Chagas Chasidus. Chesed Givur Tiferes Chasidus. That's much more emotional style of Chasidus. Chabad Chasidus is very intellectual in its style and also in the way that that we believe that the way to really get to loving Hashem is through your brain and from your brain to your heart. Okay, that's Chabad. There's another similar but very emotional kind of Chasidus, which is Breslov. Breslov Chasidus has a primary spiritual practice, and we may have spoken about this before, but it's worth mentioning again here. It's called Hitbodedut, or the way I say it in my language, hisbaididus. Hisbaididus. Hisbaididus is hisbaididus is where you boded. Boded means to be by yourself. That's what it means. To be boded means you go right here. This is a perfect spot for his bodedut. Okay, you go out to the forest and you speak to God, and you talk to him like he's your friend or like he's your father, and you say, "Dad, I'm having a difficult day. I'm having a difficult time," and you have this close one-on-one connection. That's hisboididus in my language. Okay, that's the Breslov. Breslov. It's very beautiful, a wonderful practice. It's not Chabad. Chabad has, I say the difference between Chabad and Breslov is one letter. Instead of hisboididus, you change the daled to a nun. Hisboininus. Hidboninut, and that's what he's describing here. Hidboninut, maybe you're going to sit in the same chair, but you're not talking to God, you're thinking about God. You're trying to understand God. And the reason you're trying to understand God to whatever degree you can, which is very little, is in order to awaken your emotion towards Hashem. So that you should love Hashem. Because when you start to think about the role Hashem plays in your life, it could be in a very practical sense, like he gave me my wonderful family. He gave me another day to breathe. He gave me so many opportunities. We live in these beautiful homes and we drive these beautiful cars and we use these beautiful clothing and have these amazing businesses and do all these wonderful things in our lives. Look at all that. That's on a very low level, which is very high, but it's a low level version. Another version could be you're looking at what Hashem created and you say, wow, look at all these trees. That would be an example of how I could use science to serve Hashem. Look at how Hashem creates everything so perfectly. And everything in this world has its nature and its style and its way and its method, and it's unbelievable. What a creator. That's a next level, because it's not about you anymore. It's about the great wide world out there. You can go much deeper than that. You could say, wow, all of this that I'm looking at is just Olam HaAsiyah, it's the lowest of all the worlds. There's infinite numbers of worlds that go beyond that. And you can keep going and going and going on these thoughts. And the more you learn about Hashem, the more you can think about Hashem. Because if you don't know so much, you can only do so much thinking. There's only so many things to think about. The more you learn about Hashem, the more there is to think about. And that's what Hisboininus is. Hisboininus is taking time in your day to think about Hashem. It could be similar in a mythological, I hope you won't get offended, mythological marriage, where everything is in this perfect world, and this man takes time every day to think about his wife. And there's many things you could think about. You could think about, wow, she's so nice to me. She does so many good things for me. Or you can even think about, wow, she's such an amazing human being. That's a kind of higher level, because it's not just about me, it's about appreciating her for who she is. That should arouse within you an emotion. That's what Chabad is about, literally. Chabad is about this chapter right here. It's about thinking about Hashem. Thinking about Hashem in order to develop a true relationship with Hashem. Now, you can develop a relationship with Hashem, and this is not me knocking Breslov, because it's very holy and a very special thing. He was a grandson of the Baal Shem Tov. This is big stuff, so I'm not here. But a person could follow that path. Yeah. But it's not only Nachman Yuman, it's most of we were speaking about the gurus of the day. It's most of the teachings of Gedalia Fenster. Gedalia Fenster is a big Breslov, although he does mix some Chabad Chasidus in there as well. But he's a big, and as I mentioned in my critique of these two teachers, I found him to be much more authentic because he's constantly quoting from Reb Nachman. You know what I'm saying? And therefore, I found it to be very authentic. So he's bonus or is up to, oh yeah. So the objective is to use your mind to cause your heart to feel. And we're saying, therefore, even in your heart, your godly soul has an apartment. His apartment. His house, his home is in your
En
brain,
el versículo
but he has it in the left ventricle. And there's a reason why right and left
So this
ventricle,
is
by the way.
Chabad.
This is Chabad.
This is not,
Breslov.
they wouldn't follow this book necessarily.
Both Chabad will read Breslov, and Breslov will read Chabad, but it's not their main book.
Pack, not the
But
pack.
Tanya
Yeah.
is only
Chabad.
Chabad.
Tanya is the written Torah of Chabad. It's the foundation of everything that Chabad is built on.
que viene de Cábala.
That's right. Both of them have Kabbalistic foundations, because both of them are based on the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, Chasidus. Both of them would be Chasidus. So Chasidus is the big picture.
Okay.
Chabad is one part. Breslov is another part. And Satmar, Belz, Babov are all other parts of Chasidus.
The Hasidut was started by the Baal Shem Tov.
Correct.
And then the disciples, which are the Rambam.
No,
No,
Rambam is way before.
Can you tell us the ramification historically?
His primary disciple, he had many disciples. His primary disciple was the Maggid of Mezrich. The Maggid of Mezrich had many disciples, and from there we have the splintering or the spreading out of the Hasidic movement. So Baal Shem Tov, Maggid are pretty much a direct line. Baal Shem Tov, Maggid, there were others, but really almost all Hasidus went through the Maggid. Okay, from the Maggid, we suddenly have this splitting out. And there you start to have the Alter Rebbe, would have been a student of the Baal Maggid. He's the author of the Tanya. Well, it's a little complicated, but we're going to go with it. Anyhow, the Nachman of Breslov, because Nachman of Breslov in a certain way had his own, was not so much a disciple of the Maggid. He kind of made his own, if I know the history correctly. I'm not so clear on that. But let's say he's the same era as the Alter Rebbe. You have Reb Levi Yitzchak Barditchev. You have a number. At this point, you have probably 20 or 30 branches. Okay, from those 20 or 30 branches, late 1700s to early 1800s.
So basically, if you have any Ashkenazi.
No, you could be from the Litvaks. You could be from the Misnagdim.
But you had to have somebody that was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and the truth is, it really historically, it's probably true because most of Lithuanian Jewry was destroyed in the Holocaust. In other words, more so even than any other group, even though not numerically, but percentage-wise. So therefore, you're gonna even the current Litvaks are mostly Hasidic grandparents or great grandparents. Okay. At the time of the Baal Shem Tov, you also had a split because the Baal Shem Tov was splitting away from the rest of what was going on. So he was a revolution in a way.
Sorry, when you say this Ashkenazim, so the Sephardic.
They were not. Well, it's complicated because really the Alter Rebbe, for example, he has Sephardic ancestry. So does the Baal Shem Tov. It's not completely Sephardic. He's like a lot of us. We're a mixed breed. They're earlier. Ramban.
We listen to that.
Yes. 100%. That's why it's more complicated. I'm giving a simplistic version, but it's not so. Yes. Okay, guys, let's do a little bit more because we got once again desviado. I'm terrible. Okay. Okay, we're gonna have to do another class on chapter 9 as well. We're gonna get to a certain point and we'll cut for today. Page 139. And these wise people who are developing of a love for Hashem through his Bainanus, which is where we got through this whole conversation, it is developed in their da'at, in their mind. That itself is a complicated thing. I'm not going to go in detail right now. And in their knowledge, he says, but I don't like the word knowledge. It's more complex than that. And in their mind. By thinking about things that arouse love. So like I was saying, why do people have a picture of their kids or of their spouse on their cell phone? You don't love them, you need a picture. Come on. No, it's not true. Because when you have a visualization, it brings them to mind. That's exactly right. And so it is, because you get so involved in everything else in your life. That's the reason we have a mezuzah on the door. That's the reason we wear tzitzit. That's the reason we have many, many physical reminders of Hashem in our life. Okay, it's to keep it in our mind. But here we're trying to go further than just even like the picture on your cell phone. Okay, you notice it for a second, great. But then you can choose to think about it. Or think about the person. When you think about the person, that's when you can develop an actual emotion. Same thing when you think about Hashem. When you think about Hashem, you can develop an actual emotion towards Hashem. So that's what's happening. They're thinking about ideas that arouse love. And another way is to create joy in your heart because of the greatness of Hashem. Here he's speaking about a practice that's primarily limited to tzaddikim. Maybe we can experience it a little bit, but they're able to gaze into the glory of Hashem, and they causes them to dance spontaneously, for example, or in their heart to feel like they want to dance. That's already big stuff, okay? Because they're looking at the greatness of Hashem. Page 140, and with this, we're going to conclude for today. That is an example. That's correct. Now we can bring it back. I wanted to bring it back to.
De
Que
que
si tú
think-
piensas en el greatness de Dios, eso hace que tú lo ames. O sea, te genera un sentimiento en el corazón, but it's originated in the brain.
Exactly
And
correct.
also like starting this.
Yeah. Well, this would be.
Basically, like you know that it's gonna work, and then it comes to love.
Let's say. Well, let me just finish this one last sentence, and then we'll come to your question. Is there?
You're in love. No,
Right.
because I think in the more
start
modern
knowing the
world, you start with the
person.
heart.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
there's a point to what you're saying.
Said you and said, wow, she's attractive. I'm gonna ask her out. But he's asking you out because he found you attractive.
Exactly.
With the she there, the attraction, there's
No,
Exactly. It's starting.
Yeah. Well, we'll come back to it in a second. Hold on. We'll get there. Let me just finish this one sentence, because this is a good ending point for today. V'chein shar midas kedaiser shebelev. And likewise, the other positive emotions. We said that the godly soul has 7, we use the word emotions. I don't like it, but we're using it. 7 emotions, which is love of Hashem, fear of Hashem, looking at the greatness of Hashem, all these 7 emotions, their neighborhood is in the heart. So the godly soul has his apartment, his vacation house in the heart. His main work is in the brain, but he has a space in the heart where he has a permanent dwelling. And that is the love, the excitement, the joy, and all of the other positive emotions regarding Hashem.
So which are the emotions? So we have like a 7 emotions.
There's 7 of them, but even these 7 can be subdivided further. 7 basic emotions. Okay, Chachma, Bina, Chesed, and Gevura, which Chesed leads to love of Hashem. Gevura, which leads to fear of Hashem. Tiferes, which leads to recognizing the beauty of Hashem. Netzach is the power to persevere for Hashem. Like the man who says, like all these songs, right? I'll climb any mountain, I'll cross any sea, blah, 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 blah. That's perseverance, supposedly, for love. You can have that for Hashem. I'll give you another class on that. That'll be one of our classes. Yeah.
Fear too.
Fear also. That's also in the heart.
But it's fear for God.
Fear for God. And a positive fear for God, not the fear for God, like I'm scared that he's going to punish me. That's the most insignificant fear for God. Very insignificant. It's important. It's an important thing to have in the back pocket.
Oh, does it work? The good one?
The good one?
Yeah.
The awe of Hashem.
But
Wow.
all is different from fear.
They're related. Imagine standing at the edge of a volcano and looking into this
Lava.
power that's unbelievable, this heat that's over. Yeah. So that is a fear. It's related to the world of fear, but it's not fear in the sense that, oh my gosh, I'm scared I'm gonna get burnt. It's more like, this is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Okay. Yeah, okay. So blood is yes, I can give you a partial answer. This is not a complete answer. A partial answer. Blood is in Yiddish. I'm going to give you a Yiddish word, kachevik. It's cooking. It's warm. It's alive. It's flowing is part of it, but it's warmth. The warmth of the body comes from the blood. Right? The blood temperature is 98.6, then the body is healthy. If the blood is gone down, there's a problem. It's the blood that gives warmth, vitality, life. That's what blood is. So blood is the animal soul, primarily. Right. So the pasuk says nefesh. The Alter Rebbe says that nefesh means nefesh habahamis,
Like how
the animal
everything's
soul.
alive. How is
The
everything?
animal
An
soul.
Andrew, an animal, how they're alive.
Because
Life
it
is
says
in
the
their blood.
animal soul lives in the left ventricle where there's blood. But the
Mm.
the divine soul lives
In
in
the
the
right,
right where there's no blood. That
And where the blood is a little bit less,
Filtered?
there's still, let's call it emotion. There's still vitality and energy, but it's not vitality and energy purely for vitality and energy's sake. It's now a little bit more controlled. It's in a little bit more. So again, going to what you're saying, the nefesh, the normal soul, the normal human, is his blood, and therefore, what do we call? As a guy walks in, what do we call a guy? A guy who's noticing this beautiful woman. A red-blooded male, they'll call him. Right? That's what they'll call him. Why? Because that's what it means. He's somebody who's I don't have to look, do I? I don't pose for things. I hate posing. Good. A red-blooded male is somebody who's yeah, now pretend you're listening, guys. Is somebody who's passionate, right? The Latin lover. He's a red-blooded male. Why? It's all the blood. It's this blood is this vitality. It's this. So normally, I mean, in the rest of the world, it's looked up very highly. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. And in a certain way, we also look up to it in the sense that it's life. What is the whole purpose of the Tanya? The whole purpose of the Tanya is that we should not be doing mitzvos dead. We want them to be full of vitality and excitement and passion. So the animal soul is the unfiltered vitality, is the vitality the way it acts as a human animal. Okay, a human animal gets angry, is attracted to is attracted to other people, is interested in poetry. That's all part of the human animal. I gave different levels there on purpose. Okay, it's all part of the human animal. Is a scientist is curious about the world and wants to discover the next thing, or the reality of science today wants to be the one who figures it out before everyone else. Okay, there's the competitive edge too, which is a real part of science. It's not this beautiful, perfect thing that people like to pretend it is. That's all the animal soul. That's all the human animal. Is that necessarily bad? No, we didn't say it's necessarily bad, but we are saying that that's an animal, and it's part of nature, and it's part of the world. And the way the Alter Rebbe views things, that's part of physicality. The godly soul is in this elevated reality, but it also has an emotional side. And the emotional side is what we were describing. That's the part that has the vacation home or the apartment in the heart. That's not its main focus, but it's an important part of it. Does that make sense? A little bit? Okay.
What about what Gabi asked about the for
Ventricle.
Ventricles. Why right and left? Well, he really is describing right and left more than the ventricle. What's the other part? Is no, the aorta is the artery. The ventricle, maybe it's the ventricle that's cut in half, that is split in half. I don't remember. Anyhow, there's a right side and the left side. The right side is the part that receives, and the left side is the part that pumps out. I'm pretty sure this is the way it is. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
The heart is where the dirty blood comes in.
Right.
Oxygen. The animal soul is after the blood has been cleaned.
But you can also view it differently. No, that's CS. Yeah. Okay, well, yeah. But think of it this way. The left side. It has blood, but it has no blood of its own. It's receiving blood.
El otro tampoco of its own, it get passed to this one.
But then that's where it becomes the giver as opposed to the receiver. In other words, the right side is where it's pumping blood. The left side is where it's when the pump goes.
Sides.
Ultimately, blood is created in your where? In your bones, I think. Right? Is that what's
La
created?
médula, creo, ¿no?
See, I think so. If I remember right.
Ajá, zero right here.
Yeah, that's if I remember right. So really, it's not neither side is creating. But if you think about its function, the function of the heart is a pump, but it's a two-way pump. It's a pump. It's a pump that brings in. Pumps do two things. It brings in and then it pumps out. So the bringing in is happening on the right side. The pumping out is happening on the left side. So the way the heart is a mashpia, the way the heart is a giver, the way it's coming from it is the right side, which is why that would be the animal soul. That's where the heart is in control. Let's put it this way. Where the heart is receiving, let's say from the brain. I don't mean literally from the brain, although it means from the brain also. But where the heart is receiving is on the left side.
Which is the godly soul.
Which is the godly soul. Because the heart's role in the godly soul is receiving the intellect and then turning that into emotion. We got it?
100%.
Okay, you got it. Now I didn't even get to the real highlight, but no, we're gonna do that the next week. We'll do it next week. I'm gonna go out. Here's this one.
Todo el cuerpo, ¿ok?
Esa es el animal soul.
El animal soul. Pero la parte derecha, que es donde
Chao,
viene
todas.
el godly soul, es de donde recibe del brain.
You're welcome.
O sea,